Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, October 19th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 4 days. The game against Michigan in 39 days. Right before we started recording, I saw that this is the 400th episode of the Morning Scoop in the Morning Scoop feed on your podcast platform of choice. So that's pretty cool. Thank you guys all for supporting us through 400 episodes. And, so this is a week, the day that I figured like, hey, let's play the hits. We're going to have Tony Gerdeman on. Everyone loves Tony Gerdeman. Most people love Tony Gerdeman. The people who don't know him as well as I do love him. I mean, it's very popular with people who don't know him. We're talking a little college football playoff. 2 weeks from tonight, the College Football Playoff Committee is going to release its first rankings of the 2021 season. With this being one of the crazier seasons in recent memory, there are a lot of different directions the committee could go with those rankings. Tony, of course, has spent a lot of Tuesday nights on various conference calls with the College Football Playoff Committee chairman over the years, so he's as good a source as anyone to try and decode what the committee might do this time. Tony, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome, Tom. Congratulations on the 400 shows. I don't know. I would say I don't know how you did it, but I do know how you did it. You had a lot of help from a lot of people, Tom. So feel free to thank all of those people. I am not looking forward to, you mentioned the Tuesday night teleconferences. And it's frustrating. They're frustrating. They're unintentionally interesting and infuriating and hilarious all at the same time, because what they say one week is the exact opposite of what they'll say the next. And it just depends on what they want in terms of how they will explain it.
Yeah, if you're looking for intellectual consistency from week to week, like, you will have to look elsewhere, friends. That is not the place for you. But Let's start, Tony, with a general reminder to everyone about the stuff the committee's actually looking at while trying to rank the teams. Like when they're, before they put their list together, what do they at least say they're kind of, are the considerations that go into putting that list together?
Well, they look at the strength of schedule, who you've beaten, like opponents, common opponents, and wins over ranked teams. And they have all these different little components that they are free to put as much weight on one over the other as they want. And then you figure out, with all of these different people doing it, it all equates and equals out that the entire group isn't just waiting on strength of schedule or conference championships. And so you kind of like any of the other ballots or any poll anywhere, you hope it all evens out into a fine, nice wrapped bow. But it just depends on what one group wants or what one person wants. And like, I don't think you'll have Jack Swarbrick putting too much weight on conference championships, as the head honcho there at Notre Dame. And you might see others who know it's 75% of my 100% is going to conference championship. The other 25 is going to head to head. And those are the only two factors I'm considering. And so it's I don't want to say it's a crapshoot, but it's pretty close.
It is crap adjacent if it's not an actual crapshoot. So just so everyone's like clear on the exercise we're doing here, we don't have people screaming at us in the YouTube comments. We're going to be trying to project where the committee would have the teams right now. This is not like, here's what we think is going to happen at the end of the season, because there are some undefeated teams right now that are not going to be undefeated at the end of the season. I can say that with a tremendous degree of confidence. So, all right, let's start at the top. To me, I think this is about the only thing that I'm 100% confident on. Like right now, Georgia has to be number one in the committee's mind, and they probably will stay that way unless they lose before the rankings get released.
Yeah, that's exactly where I am, because they are so far in front in any of the media or the coaches' poll. And while the committee's poll isn't going to be exactly the same as those, when there's that much, they're all in agreement, you're not going to see the committee go away from that. And I don't think they should. Georgia's probably been the most consistent. They're undefeated in the best conference. They're still undefeated. They're dominating on defense. The offense is, good enough. Is it getting better? I don't know. But there's nobody that you would put ahead of them. I think they've earned it, but there's also a little bit of default there. There's nobody else that would challenge them for that. They like to put like three teams together and discuss them. If the three teams you're putting together right now are like the top three undefeated teams in the AP or the coaches poll, Georgia by far is going to come out ahead on that one. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think there's much argument there. And I think everybody it would be the most shocking thing the committee has ever done if an undefeated Georgia walks in there, undefeated, as I said, and then is like number 2.
Yeah, I mean, we're still early enough in the season. The reason the committee doesn't actually release stuff right now is because have half a season and half of the season is like non-conference games. A lot of them are against terrible opposition that isn't really representative of what you're going to be facing in the playoff and in your conference season. So there are not a lot of tremendous bodies of work right now, but Georgia does have wins over Kentucky and Auburn. Maybe Clemson and Arkansas sneak back into the back end of the ratings before the end of the year. It's interesting, though, no ranked opponents left for Georgia. They've got Florida, Missouri, Tennessee, Charleston Southern, and Georgia Tech left. So, this is going to be a recurring theme. Like you said, the SEC is, considered the best conference. It's like, well, look at the teams who they're playing. Like, I mean, we'll go through Alabama's schedule later, and it's like, boy, shouldn't you have like 5 quality wins in the SEC? It's like, oh yeah, you might play like 2 ranked teams all year. That seems like maybe you shouldn't be getting quite as much credit as you are. But all right, so Georgia number 1, we're all in agreement there. Number 2 is kind of interesting to me because you have Oklahoma, but the non-Power 5 team actually probably has a better win than Oklahoma does. That's Cincinnati. They have they won on the road at Notre Dame in fairly convincing fashion. Notre Dame 13th right now in the AP poll. That's probably the better win of the two, of those 2 teams if you're kind of deciding between those 2. But who to you is maybe number 2 if they release this right now?
Yeah, and Oklahoma's best win right now is Texas, who we saw what happened to them. I almost feel like this has nothing to do necessarily with Cincinnati and Oklahoma because that's who we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This to me is the committee. This is my let me get my tinfoil hat out here for you. This is going to be about the committee eventually wanting Cincinnati and Alabama to be next to each other. And the quickest way to do that is to put Oklahoma number 2. And then you can have Cincinnati and we'll get to Alabama where they are. But if you have Cincinnati number 2, then there's still teams that you're going to have to move them down if you don't want them in the playoffs. And again, the committee does not want Cincinnati in the playoffs. So I'm just interested to see, does it start immediately? But if we're talking about right now, and we are, they do stuff for effect and for appearances.
Mm-hmm.
The danger with doing that with Cincinnati is if they win out 49-7 the rest of the season, how do you pull them out? Because Oklahoma has Oklahoma State left and Baylor, so and a conference championship game. So they can move ahead of them. How does Alabama do that? With a conference championship, yes. It just feels like that. I guess I'm not going to give them enough credit. I'm not going to give the committee the kind of credit they're looking for when it comes to the group of 5. We just listen to independent music. We don't like the radio stuff. They love the radio stuff. That's what they're top 40 all the way. So but I also think they like to pretend they're credible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm thinking Cincinnati initially, but it's dangerous. It is dangerous to put them number 2.
All I can think now is Gary Barta and the Morning Zoo. I don't think I can handle that thought. If you're going just based on pure resume right now, I mean, Cincinnati's resume is better than Oklahoma's because, like you said, Oklahoma's best win is Texas, and if it's not Texas, it's like at Kansas State. I think the trap door for Cincinnati, where you can start Cincinnati at number 2, and then they just sort of slowly slide down, like, when you throw a snowball at a window and then it sticks and then it just like slowly slides down. It feels like that's going to be Cincinnati in the rankings, between weeks, 8 to 12, 8 to 13.
Like a win over Baylor for Oklahoma.
Right. Yeah. You got to win. They finish at Baylor, Iowa State, at Oklahoma State. Like, while Oklahoma, and, if you run those 3 and then you're probably playing Oklahoma State or, Baylor again in the Big 12 championship game. So that's 4 teams that are probably ranked teams that you could have wins over in a row. Cincinnati's resume kind of is what it is at this point. Like, you've got the Notre Dame win. Your second best win is Indiana, who's 2-4 and still has to play Ohio State and at Michigan and at Maryland and Rutgers and Minnesota and at Purdue. So like, Indiana could be 4-8. Indiana could be 5-7. Like, that's not going to be one that holds up real well at the end of the year. The only AAC team they will play all year long that actually has a winning record right now is SMU. That's it. SMU. and they get them at home on November 20th. They get Houston, probably, could be SMU again, could be Memphis, but one of those in the AAC title game. But it's like you're maybe going to add 2 more ranked wins, maybe. And the rest of the AAC is not very good this year. There's a lot of 3 and 4 kind of teams in the AAC right now. And you could just see you have heard Gary Barter say the phrase body of work. And it's just like, well, when we looked at Cincinnati's whole body of work, it just didn't stack up to Oklahoma, Alabama, Ohio State, fill in the blank. Like you can sort of see that coming. If they just stomp people all year, sure, that may be enough. But that's sort of been the recipe for Boise State for years. And Boise State always finds the banana peel. There's always that Nevada game. There's always that Air Force game where it's just like, they've beaten everyone else 56-7, and then this one wacky Friday night, and then they're done. So yeah, Cincinnati has to be pretty much perfect from here on out to probably stay in. So yeah, what's your decision? I'm saying Cincinnati 2, Oklahoma 3 right now in my head, but yeah. But don't expect Cincinnati to stay at 2, even if they keep winning. With
the understanding, and then the committee understanding this as well. Don't worry, we can move them down when everybody else is getting the ranked wins. But yeah, then maybe if Cincinnati does beat everybody 49-7, then they deserve it because they are, body of work aside. If they're beating everybody in their conference like that, is it UNLV 1990, late 80s, 1990s basketball where they're the best team in the nation. They're in a bad conference, but they're doing what they should be doing in that conference. I don't think Cincinnati is UNLV, but I do think they're number 2 right now. But it's going to be interesting when if they go undefeated and they're the first team that starts number 2 in the initial rankings, and they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, and you could see that coming. And Gonzaga, also not a bad comp there. Like, hey, this team is much better than all the competition they're playing right now, but. And the AAC, the top of the AAC is better than the West Coast Conference that Gonzaga's in. I mean, there's like no one in that league with Gonzaga. This is, the AAC is at least a little better than that. But yeah, that's going to be a concern. And I don't know what they can do to make that better. The best thing Cincinnati could do to bolster their resume is have Indiana run off a big winning streak. And I don't know how likely that looks. So we've got our top 3. We've got Georgia. We've got Cincinnati. We've got Oklahoma. This is maybe more wide open than anything else. I mean, we're going to go down to 6, but like, I think you could make at least some kind of a case for like 5-6 teams at least here for number 6, depending on, do you want to say who looks the best right now? Do you want to say who has the best body of work? Do you want to say who's been the most dominant? Do you want to, do you want to say who has the most TV sets in their ADI? That's a thing they don't officially take into account, but seems to sort of work out that way sometimes. So, who to you is number 4 right now?
Number 4, and it's going to be Alabama to me because they're Alabama.
Famously, yes.
End of statement. Now, look how far they didn't drop from losing to an unranked team. And there's just this, it wouldn't be the playoffs without Alabama, pearl clutching going on. And also the whole, like, we know they're good. I personally know they're good. And if they're not in the playoffs, that makes me look bad. That makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing, that I don't understand stuff. But I do understand stuff. I'm smart. And I think there's a lot of that with it's just understood. Like, yes, they lost, but it's understood. It's Alabama. And they have gotten the benefit of the doubt for so long now that they will continue to get the benefit of the doubt. And I don't think I think they start out at 4, and I think they will continue to creep up. And yes, an SEC championship would certainly help that. But I see them eventually passing Cincinnati. Like, I see Cincinnati dropping below Alabama. And then it gets really interesting when what happens between that number 4 Cincinnati and the number 5, whomever, when the time comes. But I think Alabama 4. What do you got?
I do like the fact that you turned the committee into Fredo Corleone there. That's actually stunningly accurate, I think. I think Alabama's the answer there. I mean, they have a good win over Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is they're 12th in the 12th in the AP poll right now, so that's probably about where they'd be. Close win over at Florida, which suddenly doesn't look nearly as impressive. Here's the thing. You have the good win over Ole Miss, lost to Texas A&M. Here's who's left on their schedule: Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas, at Auburn. And I think they've got New Mexico State in there too, which will not be a big resume point. But is there one more ranked team on there? I mean, Arkansas is kind of going straight into the side of mountain right now. LSU had just fired its coach, which is famously not a great sign. Tennessee is Tennessee. Like, I mean, this is a team you're going to hear about this brutal SEC schedule over and over and over again during these conversations. And it's like, well, they lost to Texas A&M. They barely beat a Florida team that's unranked right now. So their brutal SEC schedule is they beat number 12 Ole Miss, and maybe they'll play Auburn later, number 19. So before the SEC championship game, they'll have like 2 ranked wins. Like, wow. I mean, what a meat grinder that was. To me, though, I think this is a little bit of an academic conversation, because if Alabama is 12-1 with an SEC championship, they're in. If Alabama is 10-2 or 11-2, and they're not the SEC champion, then they're probably out. Like, that's a pretty hard team to put in unless you have a complete chaos other places. So this is one of those things I wouldn't get too freaked out about right now if you're an Ohio State fan or any non-Alabama fan, because it's going to sort itself out one direction or another at some point. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Alabama's number 4 to the committee right now. And, I mean, there's lots of things you can get annoyed about in life. You got to kind of pick your battles. This is one that the first committee rankings of the year are always people freak out, and it's like, yeah, I mean, guess how many years the top 4 has stayed exactly the same the whole way through. I mean, I haven't gone back and checked, but I'm pretty sure the answer is 0. So think Ole Miss and Mississippi State were like 1-2 the first year, and neither made it'll be fine. It'll all sort itself out. There's still a lot of football to go. So we've got our playoff 4. We've got Georgia, we've got Cincinnati, we've got Oklahoma, we've got Alabama. Who's 5? Who's 6? Where do you think they go after that top 4? Because again, you could put 5 Big Ten teams in that conversation. You could put Oklahoma State is unbeaten. Oregon probably has the best win of any of these teams so far. Wake Forest is unbeaten. I mean, you want to know this is a crazy season? I just talked about Wake Forest on a college football playoff show. So, who do you have after those 4? Because again, this is very much do you want to celebrate the unbeaten teams here? Do you want to reward the unbeaten teams? Do you want to reward the team that's looking the most dominant now? Do you want to have the best resume? Like, who do you go with there? Yeah,
and you look at Oklahoma State, and they beat 3 teams that were ranked at the time of the game, but we know that's not what I don't believe that's what the committee looks like. The rankings changed throughout the season for them, so they're really they only may have one ranked win, but and they haven't looked good doing it. I'm thinking, tell me if I'm crazy, I think they might go Michigan because they're undefeated. Mm-hmm. I think they know Ohio State is the better team, but also that will sort itself out. So it's okay to go with the undefeated team. Also, if then Michigan beats Michigan State, then, hey, we were right. And if Michigan State beats Michigan, then Ohio State moves up. And so you're going to get one of those 2 teams, because they're not going to move Michigan State, I think, to 4 at that 5 at that point or whatever. They would keep Michigan State behind Ohio State. And again, that would sort itself out as well. I'm thinking Michigan as one of these opportunities for them to just let the kids have fun.
They'll be excited about this. Sure, give those kids a thrill. We never talk about those guys. Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, here's the thing. Like, all of these are kind of defensible. Like, the case for Michigan is I don't think they've beaten any currently ranked teams, but they've looked dominating at times. But then 2 of the last 3 were 1-score games against Rutgers and at Nebraska, which is that doesn't look like a playoff team. Michigan State, no ranked wins, but they've had at times looked dominant against people. Penn State has a good win over Auburn. There is the committee loves to tell you why a loss doesn't really count. This generally comes up with SEC teams, but Penn State has a real viable excuse for why they lost at Iowa. The court, remember when Sean Clifford got hurt when we were up by 3 scores or whatever it was? That whole game changed on an injury. That's not typically something that gets held against you quite as much as a normal loss would. So, there's a case for all of those there. Ohio State at this point, just, I'm going to say the word eye test, and that's one that makes everyone's eyes roll back in their heads when the committee talks about it. But the eye test right now says Ohio State is the best team in the Big Ten, and it's not particularly close. And then Iowa has a good win over Iowa State, who's 4-2. They had a great win over Penn State, which again has that asterisk. But then you had a big loss to Purdue. So, how do you weigh that resume? And the other team that I think is in that mix is Oregon, because Oregon has looked completely garbage for every week of the season, except for when they came to Ohio State. And then they beat Ohio State by 14 points in their stadium. And that's the best win of anyone we've talked about so far. So there's no asterisk on that. There's no anything. They have looked terrible against everyone else. And then they beat Ohio State in Columbus, which just continues to be one of those, what, how, that might end up being more mystifying than the Virginia Tech loss in 2014. The Virginia Tech team that ended up 6-6 or 6-7 or whatever it was. But that's it. That's the only thing the Pac-12 has right now is Oregon beat Ohio State. Here's what Oregon has left. This is something that is going to be a big conversation in Columbus, because is Oregon going to be ahead of Ohio State because of the head-to-head win? Is Oregon going to be behind Ohio State because they've looked like hot garbage every other week of the season? Here's Oregon's remaining schedule: at UCLA, Colorado, at Washington, Wazoo, at Utah, Oregon State, and then either Utah, ASU, or UCLA in the Pac-12 championship game. They might not play a ranked team all season long. It is incredible. I have one bullet point on my resume. My resume is a quarter of a page long. I have one bullet point on it, but it says I beat Ohio State. So that's going to be real interesting to see how the committee weighs that, because if Ohio State is 12-1 and gets in over a 12-1 Pac-12 champion Oregon, people out west are going to lose their minds. But if you've watched these teams since then, yes, if Ohio State played Oregon again, they would beat them by 3 touchdowns, because this is not, that was week 2. That was a long time ago. So that's going to be a real interesting conversation. And that'll be one that we ask the committee about on those conference calls every week, and just get different answers every week.
I want to just clarify one thing, not to correct you, but just so you don't get inundated with emails and tweets. Oregon only won by 7 at Ohio State, not 14. So I'm just saving you.
Okay. Sorry. Well, they were up by 14. Sorry.
But yeah, Oregon they were trailing in the fourth quarter against Cal this past week, and Arizona 2 weeks ago. And really, they should lose at UCLA this weekend, but you can't put any faith in any Pac-12 team. The thing that I'm going to be interested to watch is when Cincinnati is 4, Ohio State is 5, and it comes down to talking about those two teams, because they'll have 2 common opponents with Tulsa and Indiana. And so that's about as head-to-head as 2 teams can get without playing against each other. So there will be some data there. The other key for Ohio State is to keep Oregon out of – they think they look at teams in groups of 3. And as long as Oregon's not in the same group of 3 as Ohio State, there's going to be no head-to-head there. So if Oregon just keeps looking like this, I think Ohio State's going to be distanced enough from them to not have that. But even then, I don't think I said it from the outset, head-to-head isn't going to doom Ohio State if Ohio State plays well and Oregon doesn't. And so far, that's what's happened. But things can turn as well.
Mm-hmm. 2 more teams I did want to just at least mention real quickly. Wake Forest, unbeaten right now, 0 ranked wins. They had a 3-point win over Louisville, an overtime win over Syracuse. They still have at Army, at UNC, North Carolina State at home, at Clemson, at Boston College. NC State's ranked right now. They could go through the year and have 1 win over a ranked team and look terrible all year, and have as much as they want to tell you that they remove the labels and it's just looking at the resume, it's not that's not even the blind resume is not going to be super impressive. So that feels inevitable. They're gonna lose and they'll be out of this conversation.
Tom, you can take a label off a can, but once you open a can, you can smell what's in it.
Cream of Wake Forest, cream of Deacon, yum. The other one is Kentucky. And, Kentucky is interesting to me because best wins, what? LSU, Florida. They could actually finish 11-1 in the SEC and not have any wins over ranked opponents the entire year. Now, if you're an 11-1 team in the SEC, like, where do you finish? It feels like you're like sixth in the country if you're 11-1 and in the SEC, even if you haven't beaten any ranked teams all year. I mean, that's one that they're nowhere near the top six right now because they got thumped pretty good by Georgia. But that's one of those teams that's like, you're going to be so annoyed watching the committee talk about them every, on these shows if they keep winning and just sort of stay in that kind of 11-1 track, because the resume is not there. But if Alabama loses another game, like, that will turn into the SEC might get two teams in, and now it'll be Georgia and Kentucky. Can the SEC get these two teams in? Like, just prepare yourselves. It's coming. As long as Kentucky keeps winning. Am I crazy, or can you absolutely see that coming?
No, there will be talk. And the thing is, like, if you can go 11-1 and not play any ranked teams other than the one that beat you, how can you claim that this is the best conference in college football? Like, where is the proof other than the people saying, like, where is the actual science rather than the people just saying, well, I know a guy, my cousin works with a guy who says that the SEC is the best conference. I saw it on Facebook.
Your own research, the SEC. Yes. You could very easily have an end of the season where Cincinnati has more ranked wins playing in the AAC than Kentucky does in the SEC. And they could both be in that top 5-6 conversation, which crazy times, friends, crazy times. So we are 2 weeks away from the committee actually doing this for real and us trying to stifle laughter on the conference call and all the fun stuff that means, hey, we're getting in, we're heading into the heart of college football season. A fantastic place to enjoy that heart of college football season is at BuckeyeScoop.com. We have a fantastic team of insiders bringing you insight and analysis unlike anything else you can get anywhere on the internet. Fantastic community on our Ask the Insiders board and much, much more. Sign up today at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, make sure you check out all of our great podcasts. They're on all your podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify. Wherever you get this show, you can get all of our great shows. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. And finally, on YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, just hit that bell or click on the little Buckeye Scoop logo that's going to pop up at the end of this video. What that'll do is that will get you notified every time we post a new video, every time we start doing a live player or coach interview. We're going to be talking to Ryan Day and some of the assistants later on today. We'll be streaming those live on YouTube. You can watch those live. And we'll have a pregame show for the Indiana game, postgame show for the Indiana game, much, much more. That's all at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Subscribe today. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.